Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Shed Organics Show. Today's episode, we're joined by the wonderful Bethany and Rio from Key Landscapes. Now, I had the absolute pleasure of being able to meet these guys at the Queensland Garden Show, and as I alluded to in the conversation, we were right next to each other as stall holders for the entire weekend. Remember, you can go and check out that vlog video, see a little bit of the stalls that we had set up there, and the guys are featured there. That vlog is on the YouTube channel, so you can go and check that out in your own time. But today, we're going to be chatting to the guys about their journey from moving to the Sunshine Coast, finding themselves their dream bit of land, and starting to build and curate for themselves the lifestyle and the life that they wanted to have. And this is a big reason why I wanted to highlight what these guys are doing and the way that they've built their life, because the conversations that we had at the Queensland Garden Show really stuck with me and they really motivated me to start thinking about a few things differently and really thinking about the life that I want to be having and how I can end up in that position in the future. So, we're going to dive into a whole bunch of those topics and the few things in between to do with food, forests, building amazing food gardens, the importance of why we should be growing our own food, and considerations when thinking about planning your own space and your own project. So, if that's something that you're interested in, I'm sure you're going to find some value out of it because these guys have a wealth of knowledge from so many different backgrounds and I'm keen for you to hear this conversation. So here they are, the wonderful Rio and Bethany from Key Landscapes. What I really liked about your journey initially and the way that you spoke about it, and that's something that stuck with me since then, is you were talking about this plan that you had for, I think you said 10 years and you got it done in five. And this plan really inspired me because I feel like I'm just a few steps behind following that in that similar pathway. So can you talk to me a little bit about that thought of, okay, we've got this goal at the end to have, spill a little bit of it, have some land and find ourselves in a community that we would like to be in. Tell me about the journey towards that and the thinking behind it.
Good question. When we first, I guess, we when we first moved to the Sunshine Coast, we knew that we wanted to buy a property. We didn't quite know what. We didn't really know the area, and we stayed in Budrum, renting for a year just to kind of get a feel for the local um, geography, I guess. And we ended up buying a place, and we knew that whilst it was a really nice place, it wasn't our long term, and so it pushed us to think about what we actually did want to create for ourselves. And at that time, I'd just started a new career as a financial advisor, and so a big part of that was thinking about long term goals, especially for all of my clients. And so when I start putting that into practice for myself, some of the big questions are: what sort of life do we want? And uh, how do we set ourselves up financially to be able to achieve that life that we want? And you know, I grew up on an acreage when I was as a young kid, and with my mum, and I knew that I probably wanted to return to that at some point, because I really coming from that and then moving and living in Brisbane for almost 7 to 8 years, and it's very crammed down there, particularly in inner Brisbane where I was. You can like hear your neighbors going to the toilet and stuff. So I knew that I eventually wanted to be back on land and have space, but also be able to have something of my own.
Mhm.
And I think Bethany grew up in Brisbane as well.
I'm a city girl who wished she was always a country girl.
I love that. Well,
I
you're
love the
there
country
now.
life, but grew up in the suburbs. And so I
Hmm.
think seeing fruit growing on trees is like still magical to me.
And
That's
so
beautiful.
when we wrote up a big list of criteria of things that we wanted for our long-term house and where we wanted to raise a family, and we just, we wanted space, and we wanted to be able to do things cost effectively and as self-sustainably as possible, and a place that we could call home, and it was peaceful, and there's wildlife, and all of these things, I guess.
I totally agree. And like having that long term, well, asking yourself the question about long term goals is not something that too many people often do. Or they think about something, they might go, oh, one day I will, one day I'll want to do this, or one day I want to do that. But then they don't actually reverse engineer that process to
Yeah.
find out, okay, how do we get there? What's the steps to get there? And I think some of the things that you offered advice on when I was talking to you about this was having a little bit of local knowledge, like you said, so coming into the area, but also getting to know people that are around the place, getting to involve yourself with the community so that then you get a little bit of maybe insider information, or you just get a bit of a feel for what the community's like and what life is like in that place. Is that
Yeah.
some of the steps that you would continue to offer advice on?
The first thing would be to do is to write things down, write down your goals, and know exactly the direction in which you're heading, and what you want to create. Uh, Definitely all of those things that you mentioned. Networking is
Mm.
incredibly important, and building strong relationships. When we moved up here, we didn't have many acquaintances at all, or friends even. Um, and so going out, particularly uh, we did a lot of business networking, and we, just, I guess, engaged with communities. I joined a football club, and built a lot of really good relationships with people. And that was one of the best things that you can do when you don't know anybody
Yeah,
in an
yeah.
area. But also asking questions, asking good questions of like, what are the good areas? What are the areas you should stay away from? Um, who, what, when, where, and why? What's the story of this place?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And you get a feel for that, don't you, from the community?
Definitely.
When we decided we wanted to buy acreage, we started driving around the rural areas of the coast on weekends and just scoping it and going, this is really beautiful. This is different, and just exploring and getting a feel for what we liked, what type of land we connected with.
Hmm.
Having, I guess for me, having a bit of a background in like geotechnical, civil engineering work, I could understand what the different landscapes actually offered in terms of what can grow there, what the soil is like, and what the wind is like,
Hmm.
in a certain area.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
You need to be considerate of these things. Is that something that was like really present in your mind, making these decisions? And how, like, did you see the area that you're in now and have it tick those boxes for you?
yeah, well, we had like a mobile home as well, and we'd already bought that before we bought our block, and we had a big list of things that we wanted to, a big list of things that, again, writing things down of what we wanted. And we looked for a long time, probably I think it was more than 12 months, for a block of land that was just vacant, that we could just maybe connect the services up to, um, within our price range that we're looking for. And then when we found our block, we could only find things that were like quite remote or on way west of the Bruce Highway.
Hmm.
And when we found our block, it had an existing house on it, and it was a little bit out of our price range, but we made it work. And
It was in our dream suburb, which we'd already ruled out
because of
too.
the
Right.
So you never
Yeah.
know what will come up if you keep looking.
Yeah, and this came up, and we knew pretty. I think we were in
We were in
Bali
Bali
at
and
the
I was
time.
scouring realestate.com and I was like, I have a feeling it's going to come up soon. And then I
Yeah.
found it and I was like, this is it. I knew it as soon as I found it. And then we rushed back when we got home and came and had a look in person, and we just knew.
That's
And then
so
it was
good.
and there was multiple buyers as well. But we really, I guess, convinced the agent to strongly recommend us because we were at that point we were double incomes and no kids, and we had a deposit, and they were
motivated to sell.
They were motivated to sell. So
Right.
we really want it. Here's our offer, and here's all of the backing information that should hopefully encourage them to choose us.
Yeah.
No stuffing around with the contract. We just jumped on it, and they chose us, which is good.
Good
And
on you.
I think we're even less than what the other people were
We
offering.
were the lower offer too, so
Yeah,
it's not really about the money.
It's about the other benefits, like a quick sale. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. Well done to you guys. And I think something that, like, you briefly touched on there, but I think you're skipping over the importance of it, is that you are so patient. This is something that you really don't see from a lot of people, myself included. I'm guilty of this, no doubt, of just being like, I want it now. Like, I really want that dream life now. But you so patiently waited, and to double click on the story about the house, you had it sitting somewhere for a little while and weren't even using it, and you kind of brought all these pieces together patiently to then finally merge them.
Yeah. So we had bought a mobile home, but we didn't have anywhere to put it. So we coordinated with the seller to leave it on their property for a while. And when they were, it was kind of like
it was an unknown time frame
because we hadn't even bought a house, but
Yeah.
we knew that that's the direction that we were heading in. And so we'd
already sold our other houses.
Yeah.
And we were living with friends with all our furniture stored under their house. Like,
Whoa.
we were in between houses with this mobile home and nowhere to put it.
And so it kind of just worked out. And our block has the existing house on it, and it also had a cutaway area that was already prepared. So there was no major earthworks or anything that we needed to do. And it just worked out.
Yeah, I'm stoked for you both, and I think it's really, really cool. And you've now subsequently raised a family on this block, and you have two beautiful little kids, and you've transformed your area, your landscape, to a now food forest. Is that right? And tell me a little bit about the journey of coming to the land, and then what your first decisions were like, what the first things that you had to do, and all of that, and priorities from coming to the land. Because I love these kind of stories.
So yeah, we moved onto our block end of 2019, pre-kids, and we were both working essentially full time, and we just started living on the land, observing the seasons, just starting to dream of what we wanted to do with it, because you've got to be on your land before you know what you can do with it. And we had all these ideas, and we really just couldn't nail them all down into a cohesive plan yet. So we just sat on it for 12 months to 2 years.
There you go. Look at that patience coming out again.
We put a couple of trees in, and they died because they were just in a grassy hill, and we learnt a lot and went, actually, we need to plan this a little bit better and be more intentional. And then our first baby boy came along, and I spent a lot of time at home, way more than I ever had. And that was when I started growing food properly. And I just set up a little no-dig garden in the front yard and would go down with him and just got to start putting things into practice. And I think our knowledge grew, and as we learnt more and studied permaculture over that time, our plans grew more, I guess, strategic around how to best manage our land.
Yeah.
A little bit of backstory: we're on a very steep block, which makes it challenging. We're on a west-facing block as well. But we also have some hidden benefits of tree lines and bushland surrounding our block. So we've got natural windbreaks, we've got biodiversity in the bushland, and we've got excellent amounts of sun and water flow down our block.
Yeah,
so
definitely.
We had to figure out how to make it easy to manage with the slope.
Was that always the place that you were going to cultivate that slope? Do you have, is that the main section that you can work with?
There's a incredibly steep element that we haven't done anything with. That is still just grass, and we use a 4-wheel drive ride on to get that sorted.
Wow.
But there's some batters or like previous earthworks that had been done that were quite difficult to manage and would basically consume like your weekends doing that.
Whippersnipping, so much whippersnipping.
And the original, well, the previous owners had just mulched the entire area, and so it wasn't set up for success in any way. It was, apart from it, preventing weeds for 6 months, and then it just turned into a
They just started
overgrown mess. And we went through and cleared everything out and planted a whole heap of natives to get a canopy up, and that shaded out a lot of the area that was causing a lot of the issues. And we basically reduced our workload on the block by at least half just by doing that one little project.
Wow, that's really cool, because that's something that you're thinking about how much time you're actually spending doing it, and it's very practical. It's taking away from other things, and if you're not being productive in that space, or it's not a productive space that's working for you, what's the point? So making that pivot is a smart move.
Yeah, and like everything is, or like what I mentioned before, you have goals about what you want the space or your space to do for you, and you prioritize accordingly based on how much time it takes you, because time is your most important asset, but also the labor, breaking your back, doing hard stuff all the time. So if you can, we identified pretty quickly what the areas were that were really pain points on the property and what problems we needed to solve first. And that was really important step on freeing us up to be able to invest in bigger and better projects. And eventually, the food forest, which that's going to provide dividends to us in even a couple of years now. It already is with the plants or the veggies that we're growing in between all of the fruit trees. So I definitely having the list of projects that we wanted to do was an important part of that prioritization process. And I guess but also understanding the block and where does the water flow, and what can we use? What resources do we have here that we can use and leverage? And if we tweak this, what outcome will that provide? And testing things. And we knew not a whole lot when we first moved here, but we've grown and learned so much and researched and spent countless hours just like building our knowledge base and talking about things constantly, ideas, sharing, scouring the internet. And now, thanks to the wonders of AI, we can ask even more complicated questions and test those ideas as well. So
yeah, I totally agree. You have done a really impressive job, because and I encourage people to go and check out the photos and stories that you've shared from this transformation. But even in a year, the amount of growth that you've managed to achieve in that space is pretty impressive. And for the challenges of it being on a slope and, west facing, all of these types of things where you're basically battling against a couple of things, then it's clearly paid off, the thoughts and decisions that you've made. Now, when was the decision to create Key Landscapes? And give me a little rundown as to what that involves for you guys at the moment.
Do you want to talk about that, or?
I think this was after our number 2 child was born, our little girl. I was on maternity leave, and Riordan had just sold his financial planning business, and he was ready for a new challenge. And I still loved what I did, but I wasn't seeing it working in our lifestyle that we wanted to create. And so, because I was in healthcare, and that's a lot of time and energy. So I think we just wanted to create a new business that was more in alignment with our passions.
Cool.
And at the time, that was growing food. And with our new permaculture knowledge and things that we'd tried, I'd realized that it's really not that hard to grow things if you start well.
Yeah.
And so that was the premise of starting our business, was just helping people get started so that they succeed, rather than starting the wrong way, putting in the wrong soil and low quality plants, and then failing and thinking it's your fault, when it's actually probably your resources or
Yeah.
position of your garden.
And when we first started it, we had kind of really wanted to just help people do raised garden beds, and our business name was My Veggie Patch. And
MVP.
yeah, MVP. And we launched it at the Queensland Garden Show two
2 years
years
ago.
ago, and we got quite busy off the back of that, which was good. But what we were finding is that a lot of our clients would want additional landscaping infrastructure for their houses, and we didn't really know a heap about it, that broader landscaping at that point. And we've kind of, again, since gone on the research and information journey,
Yeah.
and obviously doing things on our property, we kind of gained a lot of experience, and we started broadening our offering to our clients, and that started taking off, and so we got a lot busier doing that, and we're doing native gardens as well now, and
Flower gardens.
edging and garden definement, or defining garden edges, and a lot of mulching or pulling out terrible plastics or things from old weed mats or things like this, and then redoing it in a more sustainable way, and teaching people as well, because a lot of people just don't know what impact the decisions have, like the chemicals that people use as well. There's some serious long-term consequences for those strategies, but with a bit of education and knowledge, they can learn how to manage their yard and their land more sustainably, not just for the soil itself, but also the general wildlife. And if they're producing food, nice clean food for their family to eat, versus the
Garbage.
garbage. Yeah. the stuff that the stuff that you wouldn't drink coming out of the bottle, but it's okay to spray on your food or whatever. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I'm right up there with you guys. That's cool. And I know probably more than the listener that might be new to you guys' story, but seeing the things that you guys can do, and even since I think a couple of projects you've worked on, you were like redirecting water flow and stuff down this sloped garden, and we're using all these rocks to kind of create drainage and stuff. It's turned into this full rethought, as you were saying, Rio, about the whole land and the property and what they're working with and making it set up for success. I've seen so many uh, well, old and new builds of houses that there's zero thought going into how these gardens or even the landscape in general is set up. They're, just bringing in all sorts of just, garbage soil, and they're not thinking about the drainage too much. They're not thinking about the runoff. They're using these chemicals. They're just throwing down plastic weed matting and things. Are you seeing a lot of this in terms of the challenges of pre-existing buildings and the way stuff has been set up prior?
Yeah, definitely. I find it hard to work on sites that everything is dead on. All the plants are dead. I find that really challenging, because I don't really want to expose myself to it.
Yeah.
True.
Let alone asking our team to do the same. But it's like, how do you navigate that?
We're lucky most of our clients share our values and don't spray or do that, but you can't avoid it. It's everywhere.
Or they stop after they've worked with us.
Yeah. Well, it takes a little bit of that education, as you say, just to open people's eyes. There's a lot of things in life that I'm probably oblivious to, that I'm doing that I shouldn't be doing, just because I don't know. And even talking in financial terms, like I'm not always had this. I think I told you, Rio, this. I've not always liked money as a thing. I've just been like, whatever, we'll sort it out later, or just think about it later type of thing. And I'm probably making huge mistakes. But there's other people in this gardening space or trying to do the right thing maybe and transform some land from previously desolate or chemical filled, whatever it is, and then trying to grow nice, healthy food. And this is where, your knowledge can come in and help people out.
Mm.
Um, a few of the places that you've developed and worked on are looking like really quite stunning. Can you tell me a bit about the things that you use? Because you've got these amazing raised beds, you have arches, and you're installing various different things that look pretty spectacular. Um, Tell me a bit about the stuff that you offer for the landscapes in terms of gardens, veggie gardens, boxes, things like this.
Mm. We do a variety of different styles. Like probably the most popular style of garden is like a kitchen garden now, which is a series of raised beds that you grow veggies in or herbs or flowers. And it's very practical. It's really easy to fit into any space. We've designed our own arches to fit over raised beds because it just looks so stunning. And who
Yeah,
doesn't want to look down at your garden through an arch or walk through it?
exactly.
Um,
And the climbing plants
and
love
the
it.
climbing plants love it. So,
Hmm.
The
but
birds also love it too, and they're really good for managing your pests.
Yeah, true.
but yeah, we find if we're putting in raised beds in someone's property and they want to grow food, we find we're often doing a pollinator type or perennial garden nearby.
Hmm.
And we do that a lot. So your larger plants can fit outside and around the garden, and you're saving space for your most important veggies that need to go in your raised beds. So, and then fruit trees are probably the icing on the cake. If you've got the space, then you should be growing fruit trees.
Hmm. Totally agree.
Depends on we've been doing like orchard styles or like just a couple of trees in someone's retaining wall.
Yeah.
We did this project on a retaining wall behind a block that there was no access and there was existing plants growing in it. So we like that had overgrown the space and needed to come down. That were risking the house. They were hanging over the house.
Wow.
So we had no issues removing those. They weren't suitable plants for the space. And this person has now a beautiful fruit tree garden growing behind their house in
That's
their
cool.
retaining wall.
It was a big block wall. Obviously, if you're doing projects like that, need to be quite mindful that the roots aren't going to be causing damage as well.
True.
So it's important to allow for space, and
Mm.
so it was a very robust wall. So let's put it that way.
So no problems
It
planting
would have
into
been
it.
fine with that trees in
It
there.
was a classic example of you can grow food anywhere if you want to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So just going on that point that you mentioned, Bethany, about the setting up a pollinator friendly space around this, what are some other things that you find that are just kind of like these, I was going to say key things for the landscape, so that fits really well. Yeah, what are some key things that you bring in that you think that are just sort of essentials to think about in this regard? Hey guys, really quickly, jumping in, I just want to remind you, if you are not subscribed to this show, that is the number one thing that you can do to show me your support. So if you're finding value from this conversation and you're deeply engaged, I would love you to hit the follow or subscribe button. All right, back to the show.
In
Soil.
terms of plants
Yeah,
or
all
soil,
of it. Yes, everything that you do. So like
don't get me
soil was definitely one.
I think edible and medicinal plants are always a high priority for us because they're of use to you in more than one way. Plants that cover your soil or are easy to manage. So perennial plants are plants that keep growing for more than one season. And they're great if you just need to cover space because a lot of them flower, they get to a decent shrub size and they just are hard workers in your garden and you can propagate them and spread them really easily.
And chop them and drop them as well, and they
prune them.
add nutrients back into the soil as well.
Yeah, so a classic example of that would be like your Thai basil or those sorts of ones, or comfrey or something that spreads on the ground or comes up into a shrub that just grows anywhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, having a mixture of those sorts of plants in your space that don't require a lot of input but give you so much back, like bring in all the good insects and feed the bees, and all of the stuff that you want
And
in your garden.
they might,
Provide habitat.
yeah, sorry, but also may even act as a sacrificial plant for pests that really like that type of plant.
Yeah.
that would warn them off, or wane them off, I guess, all of the other plants that you do want.
Yeah. That's it. And that's often something that you have to have a conversation about plants that you do want versus plants that are not suitable, like we spoke about before, not suitable for the
Yeah.
space. So is there a lot of conversation and consultation going on in and around the setting up of this with the client? Are we talking about their goals and their amount of time that they're spending each week in the garden and how realistic that looks 6, 12 to 24 months in the future?
You want to talk about that?
Definitely.
Yeah, sure. I do most of the client communications, so particularly in that initial coordination and thinking about what's going on with their block and the practical element of any designs that we're doing. And so, 100%. What are their goals?
Yeah.
And I've been asking that question for a very long time. In anything,
Yeah.
what do you actually see for this long term? For the long term element of this space, and we usually work with homeowners, and they usually have a bit of a dream about what they want, or they're very inspired to grow their own food, but they just don't know how.
Mm.
So sitting down or doing a garden walkthrough with them and listening to what is important to them, what their motivations are, timeframes, how much time they are spending in managing certain areas, or it really depends on what they want to engage us for in the first place. We can do very broad plans for entire properties, or we can do specifically just to putting in a couple of raised beds if that's what they want.
Yeah.
But where do they put those raised beds and why? Close to the kitchen, ideally, because they want to just be encouraged or not have any barriers to go out there and grab a few things for their dinner plate and just. So not too far away from the kitchen. Obviously, you need good sunlight. But then what else is going on around there? Is it slopey? Is there easy access to water these vegetables? So you're thinking about all these different elements that really build the whole picture for them, and it makes it a no-brainer. And through that process, you can show them, they learn for one, but you were also showing them like just how much you know about everything to do with what we're doing. So it builds a lot of trust and confidence from their perspective, and it all makes them feel more comfortable in actually doing something. The other thing that a lot of people don't necessarily think about is how much they want to spend.
True.
So it's important to have that conversation as well, and because you can say, okay, well, if they don't give me a budget, then I'll be like, okay, well, this is what I would do, and budget wasn't an issue, and then that's like the ultimate dream. But then it might be, okay, well, what can I do if I don't want to spend that much? And then you can kind of reverse engineer, and you say you don't have to use this type of material, or you could use different types of beds, or you could mulch this area, or you could. There's so many different ways to give them something that meets all of their objectives, I guess.
And looking at the household size, who's living there and their needs, like whether it's an older person who needs accessible beds as they might lose some mobility, or whether it's a family with kids who are growing up who might be starting to need more and more food, and then having a plan for them to maybe expand their garden down the track. And then how many mouths they're feeding.
Yeah.
That all comes into it.
So true. Yeah, you're taking people's kind of initial dreams, and I suppose like you see all of these amazing curated gardens and things like the ones that you provide on Instagram and various other places, and people go, "Oh, I want this and I want this," and they show you all these pictures, and you go, "Well, that kind of we need to think about this," and you're kind of just working with the people to bring a realistic version of their dreams to the property. And one thing that you spoke about before was the fact that you were on the land for a year or two before you really had your plans come together. And you're seeing it through all the seasons. You're seeing it under intense wind and rain and sun and all of this. And you get a picture of like, okay, that bottom corner always gets flooded out, and let's not go and put something there that like cactuses.
Mm.
You
We're
know.
we're lucky because we've got such a sloped. We're on the side of a mountain block. We have high draining, kind of almost Mediterranean type sea, climate zone in the top half of our block, which is like dry bush and exposed to the wind, and tricky slope. And then we've got our middle area, which is like kind of our lush, gentle slope, which we've turned into our food forest, which has better soil because the topsoil's been going down the hill. And then we have a little grove of shade, perpetually shaded area at the bottom of the hill. So we've got a couple of trees that love having wet feet, like our jackfruit
Mm,
consistently has wet feet down there, and it is loving life.
yeah, cool.
So growing things in different, we've got 3 microclimates on our block to work
Yeah,
with.
I suppose that is a benefit as well. You can be creative with that, can't you?
Yeah.
And sometimes, if you're out on a client site, sometimes it's about spending more time there, and they might have 3 or 4 different projects that they want to do on their property, but it's important to stage things out just so you can actually get there and spend more time. But also, because when you're doing initial consultation on the garden consults or walkthroughs, you've only got a limited amount of time to be in front of them,
Mhm.
and whether that's because of them or whether we've got to go pick up the kids or whatever it is, you have to cram a fair bit into it, and you don't necessarily get the full picture of all 3 or 4 projects, and then
Exactly.
have to do a quote for each element. Sometimes if you say, okay, well, what's the priority area for you? Let's focus on that. And then through that process, we can continue to pull out important information out of you, or
Mm,
get to understand the different elements of the land in even greater detail, and then come up with another stage 2 solution that is going to be more refined and even better than what you could have initially thought about. And yeah, we did spend a long time, just similar to us moving to the Sunshine Coast and trying to find the right area. Sometimes you just need to sit in a place in your own land, in your own space, and know and get to know it. Get to know it and understand the different mechanisms at play and the different forces of nature, the
yeah.
different plants, the different trees. Like, just learning how to ID all of the plants on your property
Yeah,
was a
And
big,
foraging.
and
that's hard enough.
and finding all of the existing trees that are productive, that we just have random passion fruits popping up all over the place at our place.
That's
That
like,
we didn't plant. I don't know how long they've been here for, but
yeah.
I'm okay. I'm grateful that they're producing for us.
Yeah, exactly. There are hidden benefits that just come out of it. You just that you don't
Yeah.
expect. Um, really cool. I love all of that thinking about working with the client and like you said, thinking about the projects down the line as well, because things change, people's goals and priorities change. Like, you have a child, things change, like your time changes, all of this. So people's lives and goals will shift as the projects move as well. How much are you following up with your clients in the future once the project is fully done? Like, is that something that you do very often, or is it something you want to do, or how important is that?
I think it's definitely really important, because it's an opportunity to be able to add more value to them again in the future, but also just be a sounding board if they're thinking about things. When you're working with land or property, I don't personally like making mistakes. I much prefer things to be successful. You can learn a lot from your mistakes, but some mistakes are more expensive than others.
Yes.
And so there was plenty of things throughout our period when we were on our own property, and we would test things that were and not lead to being an expensive mistake. But then it took us a while to really refine what the big plays were going to be, that we're going to be investing potentially thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars into. And we wanted to make sure that it was done right.
Yeah, that's a
Didn't
good
have to do
point.
it again.
Yeah.
Um,
A lot of our clients who have land similar to our situation often have existing gardens that they need help with, and they want new gardens too. So, for an example, like next week, we replanted some raised beds for a client, and they had some fruit trees on site, and they have done nothing to manage their fruit trees because they don't know. They've moved from Brisbane and they have acquired this land and they work full time and have kids and just don't know what to do. So we saw their fruit trees when we were on site and said, when it's time, we'll come and help you with your trees.
Yeah,
So
cool.
I'm going out there next week to do their trees with them, but I'll get to check in on their veggie garden and give them some advice because we're hitting spring season now. So they'll be ready to start their new spring garden.
Yeah. And some people, I guess, if we're doing a veggie patch, they want the tools to be able to continue to manage it themselves after we've put it in for them initially. And we love that because we're setting people up to, I guess, learn how to fish for themselves, versus us having to do it for them. And that way it kind of feeds into our vision of creating that individual ownership around their own food supply. That's probably a really complicated way to say it, but essentially, you have some people that really just want you to do it for them. So we also go out sometimes and do replants as you're interchanging through seasons, and their old crops have all kind of passed their
use by date,
and they need a refresh. So we might go in and put some additional compost or soil in, depending on where the bed levels are at, and put new seedlings in and remulch it all, give them the next season for them to enjoy those new ones.
You're taking the pressure off them as well, like doing too much of the thinking. You just some people just want to outsource the experience. They want help with things that they don't want to have to think about half the time. Like they just want a productive garden. They want to do the basics, picking, watering. So then that's when you can come in and do some of the heavy lifting, which I'm sure is actually a physically heavy lifting job too.
Yeah, definitely. Well, some people don't even want to do the watering. So what we usually recommend for them is like a wicking kit option for their raised beds, where there's like a reservoir of water that sits underneath it, and the plants or the veggies just pulled water up from this reservoir as they need it, rather than traditionally like watering from top. So you're only having to top up the beds once every couple of weeks, at that point, versus having to be out there every day or every 2 days watering it with a hose,
Which is important for people who like to travel and be away for periods of time. That's a big deal for some people, not going away and having their garden die while they're away for a couple of weeks on holiday.
So true.
And there's the heat that we get in our Queensland summers, if the plants have that constant supply of water and forget about them for a day after they've been scorching, then they still go all right,
yeah it's honestly a really amazing tactic. I wish you could install them underground so that we could have that, but with real good organic matter, then we have storage of water deep underground and blah blah blah.
We do have water basins still.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
that's essentially what it's based off, the model.
Yeah, and it works so well, like you said, for people traveling, people doing all sorts of different things where they're not always able to get there in water. I'd like to make a little bit of a kind of a pivot towards thinking about, I guess, like starting this journey on a business together now and creating this new life for you guys. I've been fascinated by what business owners have at the top of their mind currently in terms of, like, for example, for myself, one of the main things that I think about regularly at the moment, and it was brought up in a recent podcast as well, is consistency in trying to show up just every day, doing what I'm doing and trying to help as many people as possible. But also on the back of that, another thing that's really top of mind to me is one person at a time, right? So I think so much about trying to spread the message, trying to help as many people as possible, right? Let's say that line quite a fair bit, but realistically in my head, it's one person at a time, one interaction at a time, going and shaking a hand, helping somebody with, thinking about how do they go away on holiday when they need to water their garden. And that little mentality is helping me tick and being a bit of a North Star at the moment. So can you give me a bit of an insight into business mind thinking about you guys and moving forwards? What's some things that are top of mind for you at the moment?
Shall I go first?
Go for it. You get if you got something to say, say it.
I think I'm a values-based business advocate, and
Beautiful.
I just I connect with a business if I know their values and they align with mine. And so when we created this business, we were very intentional about honing our values and being able to communicate that and tying that into our greater mission. We have a couple of, I guess, business interests and passions that go beyond gardening, and we're trying to kind of tie them together under the same mission.
Oh,
And that's kind of in alignment with our family culture and values. So, yeah, having a good mission and being able to communicate that helps you a lot with your marketing and making good decisions that align.
You mentioned Jordan, like showing up. I think being present for the intentional conversations that you're having with people is incredibly important and valuable. But a big part of that is just being authentic and not BSing your way through it, and building a sense of community where there's actually trust in and encouraging trust. And whether that is through working with your clients or networking with other business professionals, or even now business partnership, which is marriage.
yeah.
Like there's no one that I trust more than Bethany, and that's a pretty good place to be in business. And I think a lot of people struggle to do business with their partners, but I can't speak into why on that. But I can say there's nobody else that I'd rather be doing business with, because
I love that.
But it's being mindful about when you talk about business and creating the structure and the time and the place, and being proactive about how you manage those things versus just constantly being in reactivity, which means you really have to manage your time well and manage expectations for each other well, and but also manage the expectations of our clients. So like we're really mindful about work hours and what time we work and when we're present for our children, and because they're the reason that we're doing all of this. And then, but if all we're doing is working when they're present, it kind of defeats the purpose of trying to do all of this in the first place, because we, from a values perspective, legacy is really important to us, and investing in our children to make sure that they have the opportunities that we've had growing up, but so that they get to live really cool, connected, being in nature and learning about the world in a healthy, organic way and authentic way. And that's going to build them to be successful human beings in whatever field they end up doing for work. Even this idea of work is a big question of, because so many people work in things that they don't really enjoy doing for the sake of getting dollars into their bank account. That is something that I had to wrestle with for a long time and break away from, but also push me and drive me to create something and become a creator of the lifestyle that I want, but then learn how to attract the wealth and the finances and the resources to be able to support that. Because at the end of the day, and having a big finance background, at the end of the day, everything is just resources, and it's about how we steward those resources that really counts, and making good decisions around those resources consistently over a really long period of time, and not taking massive risks like a lot of people can do, but it's important to take risk at the same time, but it's calculated risk, and the time that you spend doing the research and understanding how things work, and that just puts you in such a good position to be able to make a good informed decision, versus and that's very proactive thinking versus reactive, where most people act. I won't say most people, because it's a very big generalization. Some people just I guess live week to week, and really don't have that drive to pull themselves out of the survival mentality and reacting to just life that's happening to them versus becoming mindful and conscious about the decisions that they make can create the life that they actually want. And yeah, sorry, that's just it's a passion of mine, because I'm constantly having these conversations with people, and I'm just constantly like wrestling with this idea of what work is, what work should be. And
I resonate with that so much, man. Like just the way that you're framing it in terms of the ideal scenario that we're trying to sort of aim for, where we're striking a balance between creating a life, or creating a life by doing, but also having this vision, and you're planning and pre-thoughts, and it's a balance between patience and action that is very well thought out. And the sentiments you shared about, or both of you, about the community and the family and this shared ethics and values is so super important. It's a guiding star for a lot of what you're doing. Sharing how you're thinking around family in the future and setting up your children. Beautiful. Absolutely share that 100%. And I think that more and more people are starting to figure that out. Like deep down, this is kind of what we're craving for. So what you shared there about the balance between work and what that looks like, especially in this, I say modern world, because we're at what I feel like these two sides where we've got this very intense, fast-moving technological society, but then we've got this also yearning for slowing down and coming back to our roots of this old school way of doing things. It's like, what does this blend of those two, where we can not be just living in a cabin in the woods, versus like still trying to integrate the majority of society into an ideal, into a way of life that is this nice balance of, okay, yes, we need to provide for our families. We want to build something in this modern world, playing the game to achieve what we want, versus like, okay, do we just go, screw it, we're off in the forest, let's just run away from life, you know what I mean? Which I've thought about a few times. Do you resonate with any of that as well? Is that kind of what's going on in your head?
Well, to answer your question before, it's like, what are the big things that we're thinking about from a business perspective at the moment? I would say teaching more people how to create that balance is the direction that we're probably really heading in. And one of the best ways to do that is to switch people on consciously about where their food comes from, but also engaging with their creative side and helping them explore ideas and thoughts around creating the type of life that they want. And I guess that probably a part of that comes from my financial planning background, because finance is another resource that can allow you the flexibility to make good, decisions.
Yeah.
Having that creative conversation and empowering people to be able to do that is something that we're really passionate about.
It shows. And I think the cultivation of, or the accumulation, sorry, more so, of the two of you in your diverse range of experiences where you're coming from. Like even with healthcare, Bethany, like that's such an area where you're visually seeing the impacts of not having good health quite regularly, right? So having that, and then, yourself, Rio, with all your different diverse knowledge, you're able to help people in a way of seeing things from so many different perspectives. Are you finding that that's somewhere you're enjoying moving in terms of giving advice on this more, whether it be just the gardens or whether it be life or whether it's business? Is that something you're enjoying?
Yes, it is, but I haven't quite figured out what it looks like yet.
We were in health and finance. We were in coaching roles, and we were very established in qualified in those spaces, but they were very rigid spaces to work in and standardized spaces, like research based. You stay within your lane and quite specific. So moving into a more flexible, I guess, entrepreneurial lifestyle, we've found that it's been really freeing because we can now explore different passions and interests and get paid to do it, and learn new things and research new things and develop new skills, which has been so fun.
Totally.
But I think having a very fundamental understanding of how business as a wealth creation vehicle helps, because if you look across history, and I think Warren Buffett says it, business is the number one wealth creation vehicle across all of history. And I always knew that I'd be in business when I was younger, but I just didn't know what. And now, and the messaging that I got was, you find a profession and then you become really, really good at that niche skill set. And now that we've both done that, we kind of realized we actually like playing the generalistic.
It was what our
the
parents
entrepreneur.
did.
Yeah.
You stayed in a career your whole life, but that's not what we do anymore.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
And we're both musicians as well. And over the last few years, I've been really exploring that and have been earning good money being a musician, playing live performances. And I love that. And I also write a lot of music, and we both do. And so that's a big part of the creativity element as well. Is that's just our particular creative outlet is music, but there's so many different ways to engage in your creativity. But all of that helps you think outside the box. It helps you adapt. It helps you improvise. It helps you even have conversations with people, because you become creative and you become capable of making things up on the spot, or I'm just talking about that from a music sense. But
definitely.
even in this conversation, I've had to make, articulate things to you, and so I'm pulling things together constantly in my mind and communicating that as a message that you and your listeners would be able to understand. But that's a combination of a lot of years spent talking to people, writing lyrics, writing, content, whatever it is.
Practicing, basically.
And that's really powerful. It all accumulates for you.
It stood out for me meeting you guys. And I mean, I was blessed by the fact that you were forced to stand next to me for 3 days. And I got the benefit of, picking your brains on various different things and the way that you saw the world. And I think it's super valuable. And I reckon that you will do something well in that avenue, however that looks, whether that's something that you just share through your content, whether it's something you decide to pivot into or take the whole top-down vision that you're helping people see, or different perspectives of that vision. I see you guys doing something in that, and I feel like you've got a lot to share with that. So it's a lot of reason why I wanted to highlight you guys on here as well, is because the way that you see the world, I think, is refreshing, because it's something that maybe I needed, to go run into people like you, to have someone go, oh, like, I love when people make me just like stop and kind of think as you're telling me something. And I go, wow, that's made me really reflect on that in a different way. And you guys did that in spades. So I loved it, and I really, really appreciate that. And I think that you will do something really cool in that space, if that's where you're going to be moving.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I think who knows what the future holds. I mean, we're starting to write everything down again. Always writing things down. But yeah, it's I'm excited about the refined, I guess, vision for what it is that we're trying to create in our lifestyle and in our family legacy.
I've just started documenting our growth of our food forest. It's 12 months in, and I'm just showing what we're growing in our subtropical climate here in Queensland. We're on the sunny coast. I'm bringing out some resources to help people get growing in our climate to succeed. And yeah, if you've ever been interested to see a food forest grow, you get to watch it online, which is fun.
Yeah, follow along for the journey. I've already been doing that since you guys sort of started introducing me to that, and I'm keen to see where it ends up. So I really recommend. And you've just released something. What is it? What did you just
Yeah,
release?
the Subtropical Growers Guide. So
Sure.
it's got everything you can grow food wise in our climate, when to grow it, which plants. So yeah,
I'm gonna
hopefully
go
it's
get myself a copy. I need it actually because that's something that I need to be refreshed on sometimes. Um, so yeah, thank you guys. I really appreciate you and thanks for the time. And then we have the conversation, everybody. What a wonderful pair they both are. And as I mentioned, they just emanate the right kind of motivations and the right intentions for someone like myself to really find a lot of motivation and inspiration in their journey and their story. So I really hope that you found some inspiration in that too, because it's really difficult to think about the life that you want to create, let alone having to sort of reverse engineer those goals and start putting into things into consideration and being carefully considered about the whole thing and not rushing into it and making any silly mistakes. As Rio mentioned, he doesn't like mistakes. I'm very, very much on that same page. We want to do things right the first time if we can. So, thank you very much for watching. Go and check out their links. They will be linked in the description. Remember, there's both Key Landscapes and their family food forest journey as well, which they have launched. You can go and check out that free guide as well. I'm going to be going and getting myself a copy as well. Actually, I might link that if I can find it. I'm going to link it in the description below for you so you can go straight to that, bypass anything that you need to, and go and collect that straight away. But go and show them some love. Let them know if you enjoyed the episode. Follow them along. And from me, if you can leave the episode a review of some sort, some kind words, or a bit of a star review, that would always be super helpful for this show and helps it spread it to more people and help inspire and motivate and empower more people to get gardening. So thank you for your support. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And I look forward to seeing you very much on the next episode. Bye for now.